There's a matter that has arisen which requires that I ask for the committee's cooperation. I would want to leave the chair for about 5 minutes and then return. I wouldn't want that to delay the business of the committee, however. So I'm going to invite a motion that will allow us to have an interim chair. Could I have such a motion, please?
Motion is that we have an interim chair until the official chair
And
returns.
do you have any name, Minister Ford, that you would want to propose?
I asked that Kurt Humphrey acts as interim chair until the prominent chair returns.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Beg to second, Chair.
Thank you, Minister Cummins. Are there any dissenting voices? None? Therefore, I will briefly hand the chair to you, Minister.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all. I will carry out the duties as chair temporarily until the substantive chairman returns. It is my understanding that we have with us Mr. Keith Franklin and Ms. Juliette Moore of the Association of Wayside Vendors. Are you here?
Good evening.
Are your microphones working? Just speak into the microphone, please.
Press. Yes?
Okay.
Good evening.
Thank you so kindly for joining us on this conversation of the Joint Select Committee on the National Vending Bill. I trust that you've had opportunity to review the bill, or at least have heard some of the conversation as it relates to the bill. And we are very thankful that you are here with us to speak to some of the issues in the bill. You would appreciate that we've already had with us Barvin, who spoke to matters of concern for them in the bill. We've also had your immediate predecessor, would have been Barnufo, who also spoke to some of the issues in the bill as it relates to fisheries. And so we are thankful that you are here with us. I will give you this opportunity to say any opening remarks. If you wish to speak specifically now or not is entirely up to you, but the floor is open to you to make your opening remarks. And after that, I will invite the other members of the committee to raise questions if they have any questions so to raise. Thank you. In the beginning, please state your name and your position within your organization, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Keith Franklin, President of Wayside Vendors Business Association. Issues. Some of the main issues is like the fees that you have to pay for the licensing and the areas and that you're going to be vending.
Keith, you may want to pull the microphone down a little bit so that you're a little clearer.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
The areas that you're going to be vending. How long or how much? Because you see some may mark $25 for a permit. Is how
long the permit will be valid for?
If it's a year or 2 years. I see also $100 also for a permit. These areas we would like to look at.
I am not sure that I captured everything you said, Keith. So the length of time and the fees and what were the other concerns? Sorry?
Yeah, that's concern.
That's it.
Were there other concerns? Is that it? The length of time and the fees?
That's it.
Were you able to capture anything other than that, CPC? I will invite the Deputy CPC to speak, please.
Yes, sorry. So what I was able to write down were the concerns related to the fees for the license, the vending zones and the areas that have been chosen, selected as vending zones, how long, I think there would be, it relates to you have the license, the length of the license time, and then also the permits and the licenses, the fees relating to the permits and the fees, that there was a difference. Some have 25, some have 50, some have 100, some have 150. So there were concerns there. So that's what I was able to write. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Franklin, are there more concerns? Any other questions?
Well, there's more questions. The areas and certain areas that we're talking about vending, like outside this area of vending, we would like to know the name of these areas and things like that.
Okay. Thank you so kindly, Ms. Moore. Would you like to add anything? I see the substantive chair has returned. I was beginning to enjoy this role, and therefore I would now vacate and allow the substantive chair to chair.
Good evening.
Yeah, but Ms. Moore, please, your concerns.
Yes. Good evening. I am a new member of the Vending Association. Basically, a lot had to do with the questions that Mr. Franklin posed earlier, as in not only the fees, but questions as like the fees pertaining to, it's hard enough as it is. A person has a small garden in the back, and can I come up to the front of my house and peddle my ware right there? You have for temporary vending, which is $25. If you can clarify that for me as far as temporary vending sites. I get that it's not where you have prescribed people to vend, but would that mean then that I wouldn't be able to no longer come up to the side of my house and sell my fruits and sell my water if I choose to? And the question as to the license, how long do they last? Like, do I pay $25 every time I want to go and just sell water? Or did I go for a month, or I go for a year, or I go for however? I gather that you got to pay because you use the light, you use the water, you need places to maintain these sites that you say you can vend, but some of them could do with a good side of maintenance still too. I think that was basically my concern as far as the monies to pay to vend, because I figure vending was originally a poor man's thing, and I don't know if everybody can afford the 100, the 150 at the times needed to adjust, So I think that's probably a couple more, but I'm still a little nervous, so a couple more things. But for right now, that's basically it. The monies to be paid, the temporary vending sites, if you could explain that. And yeah, that's basically it. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Ms. Moore.
Yes, please.
Kerry Simmons. I am the substantive chair of the committee.
Yes, sir.
I only caught part of the question, so I wouldn't attempt to pilot you through everything. But I do want to put your heart at ease. If you're talking about selling from next to your house or within the confines of your premises, the committee has already accepted that that is not something that we would want to include in the reach of the legislation. So that should not be an issue.
So the yeah.
What are the arrangements you're talking about? You sell from in front of your house? That's what it is?
No, what I'm asking is, you have a temporary license for the price of $25, which is not temporary. You have, if you're vending outside of the vending zone, like the normal church or whatever the case, like, you know, the school fair or you don't have them anymore, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
Say, as in, you know, the guy who sells his water in the middle of the road there going up to the stoplights. The guys who sell on the, and I know for sure that's not a vending zone. Yeah?
Yeah.
Would he have to pay $25 to do that? And
That is-
if he has to, how long would that
That's the amount.
permit last?
Chair?
Deputy Chief Parliamentary Counsel, can you assist us?
Chair, so I will highlight the issues that I believe Mr. Franklin and Ms. Moore spoke to. So in relation to fees for license, okay, so it's important for everyone to understand that the licensing regime refers to those vendors who are going to be vending for a living, right? So that those are the persons who would then be required to get a license. The persons then who would be vending at a fair or farmer's market or carnival or cultural or a recreational kind of event, like a fun event, those are referred to as persons who will engage in occasional vending, and those people will have to apply for a permit. The license fees then, for those who are dealing with doing vending for a living, if you are vending on a beach or an esplanade or a garden or park, $100. The renewal is $100. And if you are vending, if you're not vending on a beach, esplanade, garden, or park, that will be $100, and renewal would be $100. And if you are vending on a beach or esplanade, then you would have to pay $150. And if you're renewing for those areas, then it would be $100. For the occasional vending, for those who are dealing with fairs, etc., they have to pay the permit fee of $50. And for those not operating on the beach, they would pay $25. So I was wondering, Mr. Franklin and Ms. Moore, do you understand the arrangements in the way that I would have explained, or do I have to go further?
I understand the arrangements, but also looking at the price, the $100 and the $150, I think that is way too much.
The $100 though, Mr. Franklin, is for a year, huh?
A year.
A year. So in other words, it translates into $8.33 a month.
Excuse me. That's the question we were asking as to how long the license lasts for, when would it have to be renewed, and I don't know if my question has been answered, I don't know. The guy who sells his water in the middle of the road, does he pay $25? And if he pays $25, when does he have to renew it? Because he's selling that water every day in that site. That's the question. I don't know if I put myself over.
No, you're very clear to me. Your question really is, how long does the occasional vending license last for?
The occasional vending license only lasts for the duration of the event. So occasional vending is supposed to take place in a certain context, and that is for specific events.
So
sorry.
Once again,
Yes.
so which means the guy who is selling his water right there, he would be illegal. He would be considered illegal then.
Yeah, he would need to know to sell within a vending zone. In other words, sell it in the middle of the road.
Well, not the road per se. I put it that way, but
I understand.
there's a patch there, grass, and it's convenient, so when you move him from there, because it's going to be illegal, granted he's making money there, because that's where the traffic is, that's where the people is. It is not unsafe because there's no accident there yet, but you can't wait for it to happen, mind you. Mr. Franklin was was asking as to when you move him from there where he's making money, where are you going to put him? Where is he to go? And he's to go in the sites that you have put for him. Yeah?
The intention is to have some vending zones created all about the island. And what we would want to do is to consult with vendors who are going into the vending zones, because we want to make sure that, remember, if you looked at this piece of legislation, one of the things we're trying to do is to make sure that you're going to a space that is conducive for you to make money, not just move you and shove you anywhere at all. No, but I want to take you up on the point you're making, because there is some truth to the fact that, let's use an example. Coming down the hill from, if you coming down past Parkinson School, going down the hill, you pass CBC, obviously, Parkinson School, you're going down the hill, you get to the roundabout where you'll find some guys who are selling a variety of things, because I've bought a variety of things there in the line of traffic. Sometimes it is Aki, sometimes it is other things. Truth is, they would be asked to go into a vending zone, because they're right now, if you remember where I'm talking about, they would be right now in the line of traffic. As traffic stops, the guys move in between the cars and do a quick brisk trade and then move out again. Yeah? Now, the difficulty there is that it presents, I know we've been fortunate, but the truth is it does present a hazard to the vehicles and to themselves. So in an effort to bring some sort of safer environment and some sort of order to the business of selling, you want to have a vending zone. We had the Ministry of Public Works with us earlier today, who were recommending, for example, right next door, there's an open space there across from what is now, what's the name of the coffee place? I can't even remember. Starbucks. And so we're trying to move people from in the line of traffic and in the danger of being at risk physically to themselves or to other people. The vending zone, that is what it is about. And then it is intended to be obviously a place where you have running water and bathroom facilities and lighting and all of those other things, so that you're not limited because you got to stop selling because it get dark, et cetera, et cetera. The person who is doing that, to answer your question directly, would be doing so not as an occasional vendor, but doing it for a living. And he would be required, therefore, to pay the proposed fee of $100, which I was saying to Mr. Franklin translates into $8.30 a month. That would be an annual fee for the license. The Chief Parliamentary Counsel, the lady you just spoke to, she is the person who is assisting us with the drafting of this legislation. And she was making the other point that there are people who would be vending occasionally. And for the purposes of this legislation, vending occasionally means that you have a school fair, for example, or you got Gold Cup Day at the Garrison, or you got Crop Over, and you get a license because you want to sell during that particular event, or on that particular day, or on those particular days. When the event is finished,
all of that. Right. I understand.
Right. So those permits will be $50 for the duration of the period. Sorry, $50 if you're doing it on a beach, $25 if you're doing it outside of a beach or esplanade. Before Minister Cummins speaks to you, I just want to make sure you were comfortable with that explanation.
That's basically what I wanted to know, the duration. And the last one was more of not a complaint, but more of a suggestion, as in to be very, where you put these sites for people to sell food, to vend, because you see areas, I walk and I go down Brandon to the beach, you got a big amount of stalls, and you seldom see anybody down there doing anything, because it's like they're down a hole, like, you know what I mean? So, I mean, please be it's not, I don't know a word to put it without sounding horrible, but well, I can try not to.
No, be real.
Like,
You
be
want
very
to tell me-
considerate, be
you want to tell me
very
that it-
careful,
yes.
and very considerate where you put people to vend. Because you move them, yes, to keep them safe off the roads, I get that, and you want the roads safe, but please don't put them in a position now where they the money they're going to make, their livelihood dead, but they're safe.
Okay,
Still
fine.
can't feed the children, but, these things can get laid down on the odd day, that kind of
No,
way.
and I appreciate that point. And I was actually, I wanted to actually read the party legislation to you. It's just that I can't find it right now, but I can look for it. Before you leave there, I can read this to you. Because it does require that you all have the benefit of the discussion before we do any changing of locations and stuff like that. Bear with me while I allow Minister Cummings to ask a couple of questions, and I'll come back to you, ma'am, while I read through this again.
Thank
Minister
you, Chairman.
Cummings?
I actually was not asking questions
Oh, sorry.
of the wayside vendors, although their questions have triggered one for me, and so I'm asking it of you, perhaps, and the Deputy Chief Parliamentary Counsel. Now, Ms. Moore raised the question about the occasional vending license. And when I look back at the legislation, Chairman, it is something that is a query that has popped up for me. A fair may be an annual event, and so you may apply for a permit for a fair one time, and it expires based on the legislation here saying it exists, it will be valid for the duration. But we live in a country now, Chairman, where every single week there are locations in this country where there are farmers markets. And people come out and they vend and they bring not just agricultural produce, but they bring craft, candles, jewelry, bread, baked goods, those kinds of things. And that's something that you could depend on a Saturday morning, on a Sunday morning in different parts of the country. Brighton Farmers Market, Holders Farmers Market, down at the Glebe. And I just wanted to get a sense, because if we're talking about a farmers market as defined by practice, having an occasional permit for a weekly event may become prohibitively expensive, and I'm just flagging it as something that perhaps may need to be taken out of the question of duration of the event and maybe put into the category of annual, depending on what kind of event we're talking about.
Well, I think, though, Minister, that your point is taken, and that's one of the things that were considered. The fact of the matter is that this issue of occasional licenses has long been a burden for vendors. I could take you into Oystins, and I ain't gonna call the names of any of the people who spoke to me, but there were some people who have had historically every week, every Friday, you gotta go to the magistrate's court, for example, to get a refresher. And that was true of liquor licenses too, by the way. Every week I'm going to get a fresh one. So what we are trying to do is to say, look, you can have an occasional license, which would be $25 if it is not on a beach, and that is one event. If you're going to do this every single weekend, 52 weeks a year, or however often, but you want to be at Brighton's Farmers Market almost every time the weekend come along, it may work out to be more economical for you to spend the $100 as opposed to $25 every week, in which case you just get the other license, but the choice would be for you, because you would know whether you're doing this as a one-off or whether you're doing this here more as a way of sustaining livelihood.
Chairman, then that has implications for the designation of vending zones. Because a farmer's market as an occasional event or a weekly event would then have to be so designated in order for that annual license to be applicable, not so?
Deputy Chief, what's your view on that?
Okay.
Did the
I think-
minister lose you?
Okay. Because the license doesn't depend on the event, it more depends on the status that you are pursuing. So once it is that you are trying to do it for a living, then that is the context in which you get the license. But if it is that you are aiming to sell at a particular event or in a particular context, then it is the occasional. So that's the conception, or I guess the conceit. but what you're talking about now is sounding a little different. So could you explain it again?
So Chairman, if I can put it in context, I am not a very early morning person, but I like the early morning farmers markets. And there are people who have small businesses. They bake breads, really great local artisanal breads, for example. They work elsewhere, or they have businesses set up elsewhere. But because there are people who will come out on a Saturday morning to a given location, they will set up their stall and they will come, they will bring their wares, and you can purchase your things there. They're going to pay an admissions fee to the location for the purpose of having that stall set up and the facilities associated with that. What we're here saying now is that they either have to be categorized as an occasional vendor because they're coming to an event which begins and ends, or they are qualified as a permit holder for a year, even though the event is not continuous throughout the week. It only happens once a week. So if I'm reading the legislation strictly, I'm going to think that a farmer's market is a limited term event and I have to apply for an occasional permit. I'm not going to assume, based on the reading of the legislation, that my appearance on a weekly basis at the farmer's market and my activities being engaged in outside of the farmer's market for the rest of the week are in any way connected. I'm just saying that we're creating a gray area that may need some clarification. If I am that vendor coming to a farmer's market only on a weekly basis and it's categorized here for the duration of that event, I wouldn't automatically think that I can file for a permit for a year.
Chair, well, I guess I thought that the chair had contextualized it in saying that rather than you seeing yourself then as an occasional vendor, you then would be put into the other regime, which would be the licensing regime. And that way you would be able to operate normally.
If I can suggest, Chair, that may be an interpretation that, with your explanation, I can accept in principle, but the interpretation of the legislation as resting with day-to-day administrators may not necessarily be so clear. And we would not want to create any lack of clarity at all in the actual wording of the legislation. And so we would want to ensure that anybody picking up the legislation is clear that for circumstances where an event takes place on a weekly basis, that we are not saying to the public of Barbados that every single week they're going to pay an admissions fee to the farmers market to have their stall, and they're going to apply to the government for a permit because your permit lasts, according to the legislation, for the duration of the event only. And we would have to have that clarified expressly.
Chair, well, perhaps too, maybe it is more that you may have to take out farmers market out of the conception of occasional vending, because I suppose when we were having the discussion, you wanted to target those events or happenings that were temporary in concept, and so this concept of the farmers market was then tossed in with the festivals, tossed in with the religious events. But perhaps it is not appropriate for farmers market to be here. Just saying. Thank you.
Well, I must tell you that I was just thinking entrepreneurially, and I suspect that every entrepreneur put in the position of having to make a choice will make the choice that I suggested. But I hear you, Minister. The concern is whether you should pay $25 every time there's a farmer's market, or whether you could find a way of treating to that differently.
Chairman?
Yes.
I just want to say, and following off of Minister Cummings, is that, and I understand her point perfectly, but I don't know if you can legislate. I remember the words of my good friend in here, he's overseas now, former Minister Glenn Clark. You can't legislate a culture. And I think that as much as we say take out the farmers market from it, there may be those persons who turn up at the farmer's market just once, because the occasion may merit. And for those persons who just turn up once or twice a year, because it just happened to be the opportunity for them, what will happen to those persons if you take it out? So I don't think you can do anything. I think that just with it, as the chair said, using basic common sense, it may not be dollars and cents, but just common sense now, that when you look at your bottom dollar, you recognize that if I buy one temporary license, it's $25, as opposed to paying $100 that I can find every single week if I choose to. So it comes down to making a choice based on the expenses incurred in terms of the license, and I think you should really take it out. That's the honest truth, because you're creating another problem now for those persons who only are vending once or twice in the farmers market.
Chairman, I hear my colleague, and I take the point about not wanting to exclude those persons who, for instance, as we prepare for Christmas, they may come out only at this time of the year with their decorations, and they may only want to have an occasional permit. But I would be very hesitant to use language of let's use common sense when dealing with legislation and the bureaucracy. Many a person have been frustrated dealing with the bureaucracy and dealing with permissions and the administrative system. And this very legislation, in its spirit and its intent, is designed to facilitate. And if we don't make it perfectly clear what our intentions are, then I'm not certain that those who are charged with the responsibility on a day-to-day basis of interpreting it will be in a position to facilitate those that we intend to so do.
May I ask, Minister, from your experience, what is your view about the attendance at farmers markets? Do you consider them to be well attended?
Quite so, Chair.
Right. And I am mindful that's my experience too, and I am mindful of what the gentleman from Barvin cautioned us against, which is to say that they wanted themselves to be seen as businessmen and did not want to be treated as though they were being given a handout. $25 is what we're talking about here for a license to participate in a well-attended farmer's market on average. Is that prohibitive?
Chairman, I'm not sure that the issue is whether it is prohibitive. It is the notion of a person in 2021 having to apply for a license every single week and make that payment every single week. That is prohibitive and it's bureaucratic. I don't think that's the intention, and I'm not thinking that that's what you are saying either. My own thought of it, Mr. Chairman, is that for those persons who are genuinely occasional vendors and are going to places like farmers markets genuinely occasionally, that regime may remain in place. But I would want us under the regime of the annual permit to specify that there is the option to which you referred, Chairman, where a person appearing at a weekly event on a consistent basis has the option of using their discretion to choose whether they're going to turn up occasionally and pay $25 when they choose, or they're going to choose to pay $100 for the year, even for an event like a farmer's market. But if we pigeonhole that specifically and limit it to an occasional license, it's not going to be so clear.
And you'll be licensed then to be at Brighton's Farmers Market every Sunday from January to December. No problem at all with that. And I believe, Deputy Chief, that makes sense. It will help us to get rid of what Minister Cummings calls a gray area. Are there any members who have a dissenting view? Good. Now, Senator Holder, you have caught my eye. The floor is yours.
Sir, I am very glad that I caught your eye. The only challenge is that my hand wasn't raised.
Your hand is raised. Oh, sorry, from where I sit, I see your hand up. What's that there? That's not
you do?
I beg your pardon. That apparently seems to be the mouse, not your hand. So The Zoom is playing Bo Peep with me.
Okay.
Fair enough.
If you were
No
ready to
problem.
make a comment, sir. I
But no, if you
understand,
want to
but I
have the
wasn't
floor, it's
ready.
yours, you know. I'm not forcing you to. I thought that you were asking. Okay, Miss Moore, then can I come back to you, please? I had promised you that I would share with you the thinking of the legislation at this point. We are talking about a few things in here. If you have it, do you have the legislation in front of you, ma'am?
Yes, I do.
Right. So if you go to page 23, all right. It should say page 23, part 5, rights and obligations of vendors. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you come down to number 3, we were talking about vendors being subject to a relocation notice. So these are the things that we want to introduce in an effort to make it a more fair and transparent system, working more in the interest of the vendors' commercial interests than it has ever done before. So we were talking about, first of all, giving you 30 days notice before any relocation is forced upon you. So you know a month in advance, well, look, this is what is developed, this is what is being proposed. Secondly, to consult with you in respect of any assignment of a new site or location in relation to carrying out the vending business. And that if you are assigned to a new site, it will be one which is conducive to the carrying on of the vending business. So that we recognize that these things do not now exist, and that there's a long history. Barvin has shared with us some of the troubled times that vendors have had to go through when, far from being consulted, they were relocated at the brute force of the police establishment. And what we're trying to do now is to find a way of treating you as you should be treated as business people who must plan, who must structure your arrangements accordingly, who need to have some idea of where it is that you're going and have some input into the decision that is being made with respect to how the business that you're doing is to be run. Is that fair enough?
What would it, I would let you.
That is understandable.
Okay.
It's fair.
Okay.
More,
Ms. Moore?
just 30 days notice before you get your notice. Okay, merchandise. What you have here sounds really good, and you say to be treated like business people, and I get that. That sounds all well and good on paper, but the average vendor that can come out there, unless they've been doing this thing for a while, even the farmers in the farmers mart still got they say they want to be treated like business people. I get that, because my son, he do a little thing and he says you got to plan before you plant. But sorry for that. The average person who comes out and start to vend, if I remember good, vending came from our old granny who come down and brought her stuff down, and she set up something and she started to vend. I get that we're going forward and we want to go forward, yeah? But these guys, these young guys out there, I say young because I got 3 boys' daughters, so I going young. These young people who are now starting this vending, I don't know if their mind can, I don't know if the words is what's got me. I don't know if these young people who are now starting to do this vending, I would suggest then some kind of class or some kind of something, because vending is no longer a poor people's thing, seeing as that you have to pay a permit, and you just know you can go pay taxes and you can go do all kind of different things. So vending is no longer going to be a market for the average poor person.
No, Ms. Moore, don't do Ms. So.
Yeah, but look where you're going. It used to be that you had your ware, you come and you sell it and you make your money and you support your family. And I get that we're going forward. I get that you got to improve as you go on. I just feel that you guys make these rules. I get you got to do this as the government to make things happen and to make people's life better. Please Don't these things, people who make these rules, come out 2 months and vend. Go and see what's going on. Don't just let me come and say things and want to go over them and then want to make that. Come and see. People are not, I ain't saying that there are many intelligent people out there, but you got people vending out there, and the only thing they're good at doing is counting that money. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I just...
No, I'm hearing you. I think that what you're trying to caution us against something, but I want you to take your time and
right. I want
no
you to
pressure. There's no pressure.
We
can be here most of the evening.
No, I can't be here most of the evening. And Mr. Franklin got to do his thing, and he got to say what he got to say too. So what I can try to get as quick as to put it in is come out and see what's going on. Really have conversations with these people, and as the beautiful lady said,
which one? I'm surrounded by them.
She's dark like me. She's dark like me.
Oh, she's dark like you.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Be careful in make it that. I was told that it is not when the person who says, you tell somebody something and they don't understand, you say them and get it. But really and truly, you have not put it across in a manner that I can understand. You get what I'm saying? So this here now, I might be able to understand this, Mr. Franklin might be able to understand this, but the average person on the street, they're not going to be able to understand this. So in dealing with this in the end result, please make it that the average person can read it and understand well.
I appreciate it.
And that I paid $30 or I can pay $100 and still don't have to do the $50 all the time. Please make it that the average person can understand, because if you put these people in a position that they're not making any money, you guys, you know, it's going to be the same average poor people that can go. So please.
I get you.
Yeah?
And Ms. Moore, I thank you for that. No, the truth of the matter is, what you have pointed us in a direction that I think we may have heard from one or two others before. And basically what they have been saying is that this will require an element of training and explanation to people about what it is that we're trying to achieve, and understanding how this not only works potentially in their advantage, but understanding what the obligations now would be. One of the reasons why we wanted to hear from you your views about the fees is because this is just a proposal. It is genuinely not set in stone. I've heard when I got back here, for example, I heard Mr. Franklin on the $100 thing, and I probed him a little bit to say, well, that's for a year, and it would translate into $8.33 a month. Now, that is not for me to determine by myself that that is reasonable or unreasonable. I think what you all have to do is to tell us where you feel we are going wrong and we are being too harsh. We talked to the fisher folk, the Barnufo, the union representing the fish vendors today, and one of the points they made, for example, was that if you were asked to pay a penalty, and there are some administrative penalties because nobody's going to lock you up or prosecute you nor make you a criminal for vending, that coming to end with this bill. But you may have to pay a penalty, for example, if you vend without having a license. Now, if you had to pay that penalty, they said to me that 14 days is too short a period of time. You would prefer 30. Point taken by me. I'm not sure how the rest of the committee feels about it, but we can get there. So those are the things that we need to have your input on, because I understand where you're going and I appreciate your concerns. So feel free, relax, just tell me how you see it.
Well, I seen it as that they shouldn't even be paying a penalty at all. Because they got some people come out and decide want to sell off the produce and just do it in one day, and it happens that the police hold them and they don't even have the money. How they could pay a penalty? It shouldn't be a penalty. Even in some markets, and people operating the business, even the market, people alone tends to victimize the people, and they may have to can't even pay the money, pay the rent, pay the certain things because, and you gotta look at it too, that the market areas that you all providing all this don't be able to be profitable for the people. So as penalty, when I look at the penalty, we should really look at that more serious because I don't figure that people should be paying a penalty if the vend out the vendor zone.
Where do you operate from now, Mr. Franklin?
I operate in Parramatta Mall.
Do you have to have a permission to be in there?
No, you don't have to got a permit to be in there, but you know you rent a space.
Oh, you rent a space. Okay, fine. So in that arrangement, if somebody came in there and did not pay rent for a space but just decided, say for example, there was somebody in that space who took sick and then died, so you got a little vacancy, and a person come in and he did not pay rent, he just started to sell. In those circumstances, what would happen with him?
Well, people don't come in and don't pay rent. They just, come and start paying rent for a stall. They pay rent for a stall.
Okay. But you accept that it's possible that there could be a man who will come and just try and do his thing without having paid anything.
In the markets, not really, I don't think that will happen. But it's happened like, it won't happen like the market people, the people that work and running the markets, they even refuse to take rent from people to make it like they don't pay rent.
Oh, well, you're raising a different matter. I want you to pause here. The Minister of Agriculture wanted to have an input on this, so I'm going to let him speak.
Thank you, Chair. I am actually glad that the public market at Palmetto was mentioned because Mr. Franklin might be able to explain this. We are saying that a vending fee of $25 for a license is high, but to own a stall in the market is something like $50, and people take those stalls and then sublet them for as high as $400. Right? A month. Yeah. Yes. $50. So, whilst it is true that you may hear some vendors suggesting that $50, $25 is a lot to ask, how do you juxtapose that with a case where someone has a lease agreement for a stall in the market, in a public market, at $50, and then is capable in some instances when it comes to F&B stalls, food and beverage stalls, can lease them for as high as $1,200 a month. So really and truly, we need to address this issue and see where this is really going. Is it about not a willing, or is it about an unwillingness to pay government rather than the inability to pay? Because I have more than enough evidence. I have met with several vendors where I have dealt with this issue as we seek to modernize the markets. And so I'm keen and very happy to hear an explanation to this anomaly where if it is government, it's too high, but you take the same government property and you sublet it for 10 times as much.
Well, this is the first time I'm hearing this. Because I know last time, I know before, it was because you couldn't sublet your stalls or anything like that, but I don't know what happened there or what's going on there, but I never hear anything about this one before. And who's running the markets, and then they were going to be a part of it because it going on their watch. Somebody who got to be dealing with that in the markets.
Mr. Franklin, I thank you for that. I think that is a suggestion that I'm really going to have to look into. But the hardcore reality of it is that the chair of this committee has already invited the manager of markets to come and speak to this statute, and I am going to urge him to walk with enough information to prove that there are instances, and there are several instances within the markets. And as we seek to modernize the markets through legislation like this and the amendments to the Markets and Slaughterhouses Act, and issue new leases to vendors in markets, I am speaking with absolute certainty when I say that I met with vendors who have said that they were subletting for as much as $1,200 a month in a stall that the government is only charging $50.
Mr.
Hello? Sorry?
Sorry.
Can I?
Sorry, go ahead, Ms. Moore.
I know, all right. I find that I'm glad that was said, because this bill, like almost everything else that runs in this place, anyhow, no, the market is run by the government, right? The government issues the spots to people who they issue it to, yes? Now, you is in charge of the market. You, not the person that you have who buying from you. You're the person who running this market. So if underhanded, because that's underhanded, because you're paying $50 to the government and you leasing a poor man $1,800, yes? Now, how is that happening? How is that happening? The guy that gonna bring the information for you, for sure, it would have to be the fault of the vendors, because the vendors just run the place, yes? But anyhow, I don't know, because I'm not so intelligent on these things. But me, I am on for poor people. I know there are people out there who making thousands of dollars on this vending thing. Good for you, great. I get that maybe it is that some taxes need to be happening because more money needs to be coming in, great. You understand what I'm saying? But I for the person who just trying to make it by, who is actually paying the $50 and trying to pay their light, their water, support the children, these things. You understand what I'm saying? The man who paying $50 for the thing, again, $1,000 he living. And if you can pay $1,500 for a stall that $15 you will God be living too. You understand what I'm saying? So them good. We for the people who ain't so good. We were the people who might find it a little difficult. And I guarantee you that it is more the majority who will find it a little difficult than the minority. I think I got that right. The English? Right. You understand what I'm saying? So these people that are making the money, great for them. This bill is supposed to help people who are in there who are finding it difficult to, and making it better. Can we deal with that? Can we deal with how can we make it better so that nobody can pay $50 for a stall and rent it up to $15 for somebody else? These are the things you want to not happen, so that the average low man can make money and then probably be able to pay one of this $25 one, $50, be able to pay this. He'd be arguing about things that just don't matter all the time. They're making money, it wrong, stop it. You're the government, do something about it. It's been happening forever now, which means that it will have to be something. Deal with the issue at hand, which is poor people who want to make money and who want to get themselves going.
And Ms. Moore,
that's my part. Thank you very much.
And I thank you. You're 100% correct. And obviously, this is a matter that, you've heard the minister say he's asking the person in charge to come, and he will have to do some explanation. I'm very grateful that you have raised that, Minister. Who? Oh, I'm very grateful that you've raised that. I wanted to share with you the regulations as I know I'm understanding them. The stall in Palmetto, for example, where the stall is, well, I don't know if this is Palmetto. This speaks to the markets and slaughterhouse regulations as they are enforced now. So we're talking about stalls in a market that are less than 8 square meters, being rented for not less than $20 and not more than $50 a month. That's if you're less than 8 square meters. Between 8 square meters and 19 square meters, which is a medium-sized stall, it has to be between $50 a month and $100 a month. And 19 square meters or more, not less than $100 and not more than $200. That is what the regulations in force are requiring. So if in fact it is correct that there are people who then sublet, and they sublet outside of this zone, then I believe that it is true to say they're in breach of the law. And you're quite right, ma'am, that it having been brought to the attention of the government, it will now have to be dealt with appropriately. There was a request from Minister Ford for the floor.
I thank you. I just want to say a special thanks to you, Ms. Moore, for being here. And I want to say to you, your unbridled discourse so far has been extremely refreshing, and I want you to continue with this gusto. I want to date ourselves back to your previous submission, where you were making mention to the fact that young persons, even like your son, that you have a sense of and a yearning for those persons to be trained. I want to say to you, it collides certainly with what me as former Minister of Youth was saying and exposing. It collides certainly with this government and our policy perspective, our philosophical perspective, as it relates to training not only of vendors, but persons across the sectors. And I want to say that there are systems in place now for young people. Even when you try to acquire or in your attempt to have a trust loan, there is a training mechanism in place before those loans are given. As it relates to the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme, another training avenue and mechanism for young persons before they enter the business world. Even the Building Blocks program we have with youngsters off the block before they go into the whole vending regime, they are trained and they must pass their training course before they start the vending and the whole vending experience in terms of ensuring that it becomes a part of their commercial life cycle. And I want to say to you, that is something that we hold dear to our hearts, and we are certainly in sync with what you're saying as it relates to training. And I want to give you the calm, rested assurance today that we agree totally with you that those persons, if you are trained to make a vending as professional, the minister side of me of Marcus would say, to bring it to the fight of sanitary standards. I am equally agreeing with you that training must be an important part of the conversation. So I just want to say to you that thanks for bringing it to the fore, but we are in total agreement there. Thank you.
Ms. Tony Moore.
Good afternoon. Good evening, Ms. Moore. Another Moore here. I hear you speaking very passionately and frank into the meeting, and I appreciate your contribution so far. The issues that you raise are not the only issues that may arise from time to time. There are other issues that might relate once a license is granted and so on. There may be issues that relate to relocations and evictions and a number of other matters. The legislation proposes that those issues would be heard before a tribunal if they are appealed. And when we were speaking to another group, particularly the other Vendors Association, it was accepted that it would be a good thing to have a representative from among vendors to sit on a tribunal, and the tribunal will be responsible to hear complaints and make a decision as regards whether a particular action that was taken in circumstances was reasonable or not. The question for your grouping, so the question to you and Mr. Franklin would be whether you think you would be able to sit with the other associations and among you determine one person from the vending community that could hear any complaints that would be raised, that would arise from time to time. It means that that person will come either from Barvin, either from your association or from the fisher folk, but if you can sit together jointly and determine who would represent you in hearing complaints. Do you think that that is something that is possible?
I'm a new member, so Mr. Franklin would have to help you on that one. But
Yes, I say it's possible that we could meet with the other associations and sit down and look at someone that could sit on the panel and represent the vendors or represent whatever going on.
Fair enough, and thank you for that, because that will be very critical for the work that the committee, that the tribunal would have to do. That tribunal, sir, is basically going to have on it an attorney. It will have on it that person that the vendors offer, and another person who will be experienced in business of vending, even if he or she is not a vendor themselves, but they've had some experience with it and association with it. And that is really, as Ms. Moore just indicated, intended to look after any of the issues that a vendor may raise. For example, the very important point that Ms. Moore just spoke to, which is that you may be relocating me, but I am not happy with the way in which the relocation process is going, so I want to appeal it. And that tribunal would be charged with the responsibility of treating to that. So as you can see, it needed to be a tribunal that has an understanding to some extent of what the business of vending entails. There's another request for the floor. No? All right, okay, fine. While we do not have any immediate requests for questions, I want to give you the opportunity to ask us some. I am mindful, Juliet and Keith, that you all had indicated just now, or Juliet indicated that you're not here all evening. So are there any concerns that you wish to raise at this particular point?
it's on? Yeah, right.
Yes, we can hear you.
We really have to go just now, but my one is this. Vending, it means perishable stuff and non-perishable. You make a committee, you would hope that the committee don't wait, that it is not that the people chosen for this committee, because people seem to just choose people and put them there and say, well, yeah, you do that, yeah? In choosing the committee, please can you be try to, I don't know how possible that can be, but like be people who actually fair and speedy, because you want a license for the market that coming up, the farmers market. You apply on Monday, it's supposed to take 2 days. Next 5 weeks you still waiting, but because the person who runs it knows Mr. Franklin, he gets his on time. But me that don't know Mr. Franklin, I still waiting. You know? So this committee should be of upstanding people, I guess, who understand the workings of this thing. And that's basically it.
Julia, I will not detain you anymore, just to say to you that I think the leader of the opposition wants to have a word. I want to tell you that even though you now come, the truth is that you shoot straight and you're keeping it real. And I would urge, please, that you don't throw in the towel on this. You may now start as representing this association, but believe you me, that approach is what the associations in Barbados need, that spirit of frankness and straightforwardness. So continue in that vein. Mr. Leader of the opposition, please.
Thank you, Brother Chair. Ms. Moore, Mr. Franklin, good afternoon, and thank you for coming today and contributing to the deliberations of the committee. Mr. Chair, Brother Chair, fellow members of the committee, there's something that has been sounded forth by both these voices that has resonated with me, and I would just want to reemphasize it because I share the sentiment that I hear coming from these bosoms. And while we may be seeking to put in place a legislative framework that would provide for a more business-like profile and approach to how vending is done in Barbados, and to order it, regulate it in such a way as to seek to empower those who are involved in that economic activity. I think what I hear coming from these two voices, and I share that we need to be cautious that we don't create the kind of bureaucratic impediment or the kind of bureaucratic framework that becomes an impediment. Rather than helping them, it further frustrates them in what they're trying to do. So I wanted to reinforce that. I thought I heard that being clearly said by them in their words. I simply wanted to ask Ms. Moore, if I may, where she does her vending. If I may ask, where she does her vending.
Well, I'm a very new member, and vending per se, like you could say it's from at home, but it's more of my sons, I have 3 sons, by the way, and a daughter. They have some land that, the government, the acre land, and I do the seedlings for them, and we have a site online where we sell eggplant seedlings, we sell different kinds of stuff like that. So that's what we into. We just start, my son just, so let me do some advertising for my boys. Boam's Farm, right? It's, that's now, getting off the ground, so that's, and the intention is to come out into the vending now and put we wares out there as we go on.
What is that name?
Boam's, B-O-A-M-S, Boam's Farm.
Right.
Right. And my son always says, Zachary always says, Mom, before you go into something fully, you must find out what the market is and what's going on. So this is basically a lot of me doing market research as to how we're going to get our products out, how we're going to sell it. And I don't want to go to the side of the road and the police just move me. I want to be stable in knowing that I can go such and such a place, I can play my wear, and I don't have to worry about nobody pushing me around, or I gotta be scared. But we have to go.
So you don't actually sell from a public space at the moment?
No, not as yet, but that's the intention.
Yeah,
And
I was just wondering what
correct.
particular challenges you were experiencing if you were selling from a public space. Mr. Franklin operates from the Palmetto. Mr. Franklin, you operate from where?
Palmetto Mall.
Yeah, what are particular challenges you face there?
Well, there's some challenges. It's very tough. If I could have stopped a little longer, I would tell you all the challenges, but
give me one or two that we want to help.
one of the challenges is the market people refusing to collect people rent and say they won't pay. Things like that there. And right now markets want uplifting. The markets right now, I don't know, the people that are supposed to take care of the markets, or, they're not doing the job. So markets actually deteriorating right now in Barbados. They're only looking like when they first built or first get on hand, they look like it working good, but then eventually the challenge is to keep it up to standard.
So if you could improve the Palmetto Mall, what's the first thing you would do? What's the most important thing? What's the most urgent thing?
We want painting right through outside and inside, and change the staff.
We will talk to some of those staff when we come back again. I want to thank you, Mr. Franklin. I really want to thank you, Ms. Moore, for your as I said, your candor. You've been very direct with us. Mr. Franklin, Ms. Moore, God bless you. Thank you for sharing your time this evening with the committee. You may leave now. Colleagues, we will have to. Well, first of all, let me just notify everybody that you will be circulated with a copy of the submissions to the committee coming from the COVID unit. and also from the Registrar of Cooperatives. We will reach out to members during the course of next week. It is my thinking at this point that we will try to convene a meeting for Friday morning. And probably have that run until, what time is starting to? Yeah, probably run until midday or 1 o'clock. But I will settle those times with the Clerk of Parliament, and we will come back to you all at that particular occasion. Can I have a motion, please, for the suspension of the day, adjournment of the day's proceedings?
So moved, sir.
Thank you, Minister Humphrey. Seconder, please. Minister Ford. I'm sorry that Minister Cummins caught our eye first.
Unnaturally so.
Colleagues, we stand adjourned. Have a good weekend. Please try to stay safe, everybody.